The narrative centers on a king and two elderly women. The king is highly lustful and always surrounded by women. He drinks heavily and hasn't found his queen yet, although he has the power and wealth to marry anyone he desires. The story later introduces two elderly sisters living near the palace named Dora and Ima. Dora is cunning and selfish, while Ima is straightforward. They rarely leave their house and are unmarried, destined to die alone. Despite their age, their voices sound remarkably youthful and pleasant. One morning, the king hears Dora singing and is immediately captivated by her enchanting voice. When king shows his interest, the old woman returns home, piquing the king's curiosity even further. He imagines her as a beautiful young woman who is simply shy, so he decides to meet her. The king approaches their door, still believing Dora to be young and beautiful. When he knocks, the sisters panic, fearing the king's wrath if he discovers their true appearance. However, Dora sees an opportunity and her heart fills with greed, hoping this might change their luck after a lifetime of solitude. After some thought, they devise a plan. Dora requests the king to return in a week, promising to be more comfortable then. She also promises to reveal one of her body parts, making the king believe he has found his true love. In the next scene, the sisters work tirelessly to make their fingers look young and beautiful. Dora covers her fingers with herbs, but they still appear aged, causing her to cry in frustration. On the other hand, Ima has kept her finger in her mouth for many days, and as a result, it looks quite youthful. A week passes, and the day of the king's visit arrives. When the king arrives, Dora shows him Ima's finger instead of her own. The king, unable to contain his emotions, believes he has found the love of his life. However, the sisters grow increasingly worried that the king will execute them if he discovers the truth. After much deliberation, Dora proposes a condition: she will sleep with the king only if the room is in total darkness. The king agrees. In the next scene, Ima tightens Dora's body with glue to make it feel like that of a young girl. She wraps her body in a blanket and heads to the castle at midnight, where a guard comes to pick her up. In the darkness of the palace, the king sleeps with Dora. However, in the morning, he realizes he spent the night with an old, unattractive woman. Enraged, he orders his guards to throw Dora out of the window. Luckily, she survives the fall into the jungle. In the jungle, Dora witnesses magic as a witch appears and offers her milk to drink. With her powers, the witch transforms Dora into a beautiful young lady with long hair. The next day, the king visits the jungle for hunting and falls in love with young Dora at first sight. He brings her to his castle and decides to make her his queen. Dora, unaware of how she transformed into a young girl, remembers her sister Ima and invites her to the wedding. Ima is in disbelief about Dora's new appearance. When Ima inquires about how she became young, Dora sarcastically replies that she peeled off her old skin. Ima takes this seriously and visits an ironsmith, offering a necklace in exchange for him to peel off her old skin. The ironsmith, being rather foolish, takes her to the jungle, ties her to a tree, and removes all her skin. In the next scene, Ima returns to the castle in a fragile state and soon passes away. Meanwhile, the magic that transformed Dora into a young woman doesn't last long. She starts aging rapidly as her skin begins to wrinkle and fold. Realizing she is turning old again, Dora flees the castle. The story ends on a sad note as Dora completely transforms back into her older self. Following this, we are introduced to a third narrative, also about a king. This king is of a peculiar nature. His queen passed away long ago, leaving him with an unmarried daughter named Violet, whom he has never truly loved. One day, the king notices a parasitic insect on his hand, feeding on his blood. Instead of swatting it away, he allows the insect to continue feeding and later keeps it in a glass box, nourishing it with his blood daily. Over time, the insect grows huge. Meanwhile, Violet, who has grown into a beautiful young woman, dreams of meeting a prince. However, the irresponsible king pays her little attention, being preoccupied with his parasitic pet. Unfortunately, one day the parasite falls ill and dies, devastating the king. He peels off its skin and announces to his daughter that the time has come to find her a husband. He declares that he will arrange a competition, and the winner will get to marry Violet. Just upon hearing this, Violet feels a mix of happiness and disappointment, as she had hoped to find a husband on her own. Despite her reservations, she agrees to the king's decision. Soon, announcements about the competition are made throughout the kingdom. The king displays the parasite skin in his palace and announces that whoever can guess the name of the insect will win. Many people try, but no one can answer correctly because the insect had never been known to grow that big and old. Just then, A weird-looking ogre appears in the palace, expressing his desire to participate in the competition. The king hesitantly allows him to join. The ogre smells the skin and correctly guesses the name of the insect. Devastated by this outcome, Violet runs to the roof and attempts to take her own life. However, the king calms her down, insisting that he cannot break his promise. Left with no other choice, Violet reluctantly agrees to marry the ogre. In the next scene, the ogre takes Violet far into the mountains, where she cries for many days. One day, while the ogre is out hunting, she sees another lady on a nearby mountain. Desperate for help, she begs the lady and explains her predicament. The lady sympathizes with Violet and promises to help. The next day, the lady, along with her family, arrives to rescue Violet. As they are crossing a precarious path, the ogre returns. In a tense moment, they manage to cut the rope bridge and the ogre falls. However, the ogre survives and later tracks down the lady's family, eliminating them one by one. He then chases Violet into a cave. Feigning care, Violet pretends to embrace him, but at the moment he is distracted, she finishes him off with a knife. In the next scene, Violet returns to the palace with the ogre's severed head and places it in front of everyone. She tearfully says, "This is the husband you chose for me," and begins to cry. The king, devastated by the sight, falls to his knees. In the final scene, Violet becomes the queen of the kingdom, bringing the story to a close. That was all from the video. I hope you liked it. Subscribe for more content like this and hit the like button to help us out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Until next time, take care.